Today, we're diving into one of the most unforgettable and honestly heartbreaking moments in aviation history, the fiery, catastrophic end of the legendary airship, the Hindenburg. To really get your head around the Hindenburg, you have to start with its sheer size. I mean, look at this number, 245 meters. That's almost the length of 3 football fields. This wasn't just some big blimp. It was a titan, an absolute giant of the sky, almost as big as the Titanic. To this day, it's the largest flying machine ever built. And believe it or not, the inside was even more stunning than the outside. People called it a flying hotel, and they weren't kidding. We're talking private sleeping cabins, a fancy dining room, a lounge. They even had a grand piano on board. All of this while you're floating serenely across the Atlantic Ocean. A single ticket could set you back over $7,000 in today's money. It was the absolute peak of luxury travel. But all that engineering, that luxury, that symbol of human achievement, it all vanished. And it happened in just 34 seconds. From the Queen of the Skies to a flaming wreck in less time than it takes to even describe it. The whiplash is just unbelievable. So let's set the scene. It's May 6th, 1937, in Lakehurst, New Jersey. After a smooth 3-day trip from Germany, the Hindenburg is getting ready to land. The weather wasn't great, though. It was stormy, and you can just feel the tension in the air. On the ground, a crowd had gathered, along with news crews, all ready to film this triumphant arrival. Of course, they had absolutely no idea they were about to capture one of the most horrifying disasters ever caught on film. All it took was a tiny flicker of light near the tail, and in an instant, the entire airship was engulfed in a raging inferno. That footage, it's just seared into our collective memory, isn't it? And it left everyone with one huge burning question. This wasn't just a tragic accident, it became a full-blown mystery that people are still debating today. So what on earth happened in those final fatal seconds? What could possibly bring down the most advanced, most magnificent airship the world had ever seen? Well, pretty quickly, investigators and the public alike started to zero in on 3 main suspects. First up, sabotage. Could someone have planted a bomb? Maybe an anti-Nazi activist? Or, some even whispered, what if the regime itself was involved? Suspect number 2, a simple lightning strike in that stormy weather. And finally, number 3, a deadly but maybe more plausible combination of static electricity and a hydrogen leak. To figure out which of these theories actually holds water, we've got to rewind the clock. The story of the Hindenburg didn't just start in the 1930s. Nope, it was the climax of a dream that was centuries in the making. It all really kicks off in 1783 with the first hot air balloons. But the guy who really changed the game was Germany's Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin. He saw these balloons and imagined something far grander, a massive, steerable, rigid airship. His first attempt in 1900 kind of worked, but it took him years of failures and near bankruptcy before the German government finally got on board in 1908. And that really captures the spirit of the Count. I mean, this guy was relentless. His second airship, the LZ-2, was a total dud, and the LZ-4 was completely wrecked in a storm. Lesser people would have quit, but he just refused to give up, constantly fundraising and redesigning. He truly lived by this idea that if you never stop trying, you can't really fail. But this is where the dream of flight enters a much darker, much more complicated chapter. By the 1930s, the Nazi Party had risen to power in Germany, and they looked at these incredible Zeppelin airships and saw more than just a mode of transport. They saw a perfect, powerful symbol for their propaganda machine, and the Hindenburg was meant to be their crown jewel. At the very heart of this project, though, was a serious conflict. The man in charge, Hugo Eckener, Count Zeppelin's successor, was a genius commander, but he was also no fan of the Nazis, and he wasn't quiet about it. He actually refused a direct demand from propaganda minister Goebbels to name the ship the Adolf Hitler. Can you imagine? So right from the start, you have this clash between a man who cared about safety above all else and a regime that just wanted a flying billboard. And that clash leads us to what is, without a doubt, the single most critical decision in this entire story: what gas to fill it with. See, the Hindenburg was designed to be filled with helium, which is perfectly safe. It doesn't burn. The problem? The United States had a complete global monopoly on helium, and they banned its export to Nazi Germany. This forced the Germans to use hydrogen instead. Hydrogen provides more lift, sure, but it's also incredibly flammable. It was a fateful decision that put pride and necessity ahead of safety. Okay, so with all of that crucial history in mind, let's get back to the mystery. We've got our suspects: sabotage, lightning, or a design flaw. So what was the verdict? Well, the most accepted explanation today pretty much rules out sabotage or a direct lightning strike. Instead, it was just a perfect storm, a tragic, unlucky chain of events. It's believed that when the captain made that sharp turn to land, a bracing wire inside the ship snapped. That broken wire then ripped a hole in one of the hydrogen gas cells, causing a massive leak. Meanwhile, flying through the stormy air had built up a ton of static electricity on the ship's outer skin. All it took was one tiny spark to jump from that static charge to the leaking hydrogen and, well, you know the rest. The impact was devastating and immediate. Seeing those images, hearing that famous radio broadcast, it completely shattered the public's trust in airships. Overnight, they went from being the future of travel to these beautiful but deadly floating bombs. And as airplane technology was getting better and better, the golden age of the Zeppelin just ended, abruptly and for good. Or was it for good? You know, after being basically a historical footnote for decades, could this elegant, forgotten way of traveling actually be about to make a comeback? It sounds kind of crazy, but the answer might just be yes. There are companies right now developing modern airships like the Airlander 10, but this time they're doing it right. They're using safe, non-flammable helium and super advanced materials. And the main reason for this revival? It's all about sustainability. And this is the real game changer. A modern airship could fly with as little as 10% of the carbon emissions of a regular jet plane. Yeah, they're slower, no doubt, but they're also way quieter, way more fuel efficient, and just so much better for the planet. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. The Hindenburg disaster, which was really caused by that forced, fatal choice to use hydrogen, brought an entire era to a screeching halt. But now, almost a century later, could its modern descendants, finally built the way they were always meant to be with safe helium, actually become a key part of our green future? It's a pretty incredible comeback story to think about.